Patrick sat in his favorite chair, in the same place in which he had been sitting for the last 5 years. It was a Christmas gift from his ex-wife. Who gives a recliner chair as a Christmas gift? But she knew him well. She knew him well enough to know that this chair would be the perfect gift for him, even if it was a stupid gift for anyone else. It was so comfortable, as if it had been made especially for him. The cup holders were great for holding everything he drank. The Bluetooth speakers on either side of the headrest made him feel like he was bathed in sound, and many nights in a row he fell asleep on it with his feet up. This chair was the only thing he had left from his previous life. His daughter lived with her in the house from which he was kicked out. She lived with the dog he bought her as a Christmas present. The dog was mostly walked, bathed, and fed by him. All she did was hold him close to her. He sighed. His first Christmas alone, just him and his chair. His cell phone rang. When he saw who was calling him, a puzzled expression appeared on his face. Taking a quick glance at the clock on the opposite wall, he saw the last minutes of the longest Christmas Eve he had ever experienced. Should he even respond? He could have just let the call go to voicemail. But the curious, masochistic part of him was drawn to the call. It was the kind of scab that you couldn't help but pick at. "Hi, Kendra," he said, picking up the phone. "Hello, Patty." There was still the same sadness in her voice that she always had lately when they talked. And yet it was mixed with the sweetness he had always known. There was silence between them for a moment, but it was not empty. It was filled with 15 years of memories, both happy and sad. Patrick finally interrupted him by saying, "To be honest, I didn't expect to hear from you this year." "Why?" she asked quickly. "We promised to always be the first to wish each other a Merry Christmas no matter what. Do you remember?" He chuckled at that. "Because keeping promises is your business, right? Patrick, you're right. My fault. Water under the bridge." They paused again, giving her a chance to accept his apology. This time, she spoke first. "So, do you have any plans for tomorrow?" "Not really, besides giving Jessie her gift when you bring her over tomorrow and having dinner at my parents' house." "So, what about you?" "There's really nothing," she said, although they both knew it was a lie. Patrick thought about leaving it unanswered, but he couldn't help it. Those damn scabs. "So, you're not doing anything with... what's his name?" She sighed. Hearing him mention her boyfriend without saying his name was like dumping a bucket of ice water on her. "You mean Sean?" she asked, completing his tactical thrust at her. "Yes, Shauna." He tried but couldn't hide the bitterness in his voice. Just saying that idiot's name made him need a heartburn pill. Patrick couldn't help but relive this moment. In fact, it was more than a moment. A whole hour has passed. An hour of reading those damn text messages and detailing her 2-year affair. Each of them tore more pieces from his heart. By the end, all that was left was an empty pit in the middle of his chest. Kendra sighed sadly. "Well, if you must know, we're going to his parents' house after we drop Jessie off." How original. A tear rolled down Kendra's cheek. Patrick, of course, couldn't see this from his side of the phone, although he probably wouldn't have noticed even if she was standing right in front of him. He was busy feeling his own confusion. Pouncing on him, Kendra spat. "I don't understand why you're so angry. Either way, you don't care. It was you who abandoned me, remember." This only made him laugh out loud. The way she always managed to turn things upside down was her gift. If she had a superpower, it would be to project her subjective experiences onto other people. And not the kind of astral projection that would actually be a cool power. No, it was just good old-fashioned projection, not taking responsibility for anything. "What's so funny?" she asked angrily. "Why don't you ever take me seriously?" "Because you're full of shit, Kendra. That's why." "Am I full of crap? Am I full of crap?" "Yes," he said, still slightly surprised. "Was I the one who abandoned you? In fact, so... the 2-year affair had nothing to do with this? All those times you sat next to me, watched movies with me, but texting him had nothing to do with it? This fucking 3-day weekend where you, flew away to take care of your sick mother. I understood, she shouted in his ear, interrupting his tirade. She was right to do so because he still had plenty of ammunition. Really, Kendra? Do you really understand? By this time, her voice had reached tears. Her next breath came out ragged, as if she were fighting a scream. Yes, I understood. I screwed up, Patty. I screwed up big time. I was selfish. I took you for granted. I destroyed our family. I understand. Every morning I wake up to a daughter who hates me. I walk around the house that seems empty without you, and every night when I lie down, all I can think about is, no. You... motherfucking... don't you dare! No matter how hard Patrick tried to keep his cool, those walls were crumbling. Why couldn't he control himself? Why could she still bring him to this state? I don't dare... What, Patty? Tell the truth? Why? Can't you come to terms with the truth? She hoped he would grin, or chuckle, or at least thaw. The movie A Few Good Men was their favorite. They discovered this little tidbit on their first date. We made love until the end credits on the second. But that didn't melt him. Quite the opposite. All it did for Patrick was reiterate how much she had thrown away for some jerk she met on the internet. He coldly shot at her again. I handle the truth very well. It just sucks when I have to hunt her down because all my wife does is lie to me. Oops. It broke her. She could no longer hold back her sobs. A sob escaped her, and then another. Patrick couldn't help but feel her. Without sympathizing with her, he felt her. Even after a year of separation, his heart still beat at the same rhythm as hers. He could imagine her there, in the living room they once shared together. Right now, she was wearing that old, worn robe that she loved so much because it was comfortable and reminded her of her mother. This robe covered her boxers and t-shirt. It was another funny private joke between them. Whenever he had to leave town for work, she would wear his boxers to bed. It was his way of keeping her private part safe at all times. I bet she wasn't wearing his boxers when she spent that weekend with the asshole. He probably wasn't wearing much clothing at all. I'm so sorry, Patty, she said between sobs. How many times should I repeat this? How long will it take you to finally forgive me? He said sadly. I will forgive you when I finally stop loving you, Kendra. Because maybe then the pain will go away. Maybe then this fucking hole in my chest will disappear. Maybe I can get some sleep without seeing that message where you said you loved him. Maybe... Now it's Patrick's turn. His pain could no longer be contained. A sob, louder than hers, escaped him. He raised his hand to his eyes as if it might serve as a dam for tears. Kendra's heart ached along with him. She wanted to hug him, kiss his forehead, and hold him to her chest as his tears wet her shirt. Patty, for the sake of all that is saints, stop calling me that. He suddenly roared into the phone. She shut up. She had to remember that she could not console him because she herself had hurt him. It sucked so much, but that's how it was. This was their reality. Patrick, she said carefully, how long are you going to torture us? Don't you see that you're not just punishing me? You're punishing Jesse and torturing yourself. I know you're mad at me. I understood. That's how it should be. But that's why we need marriage counseling. Maybe if we... Interrupting her, his voice was strangely calm as he said, But you're with him, Kendra. She instantly fell silent. I mean, you just said you were going to meet his parents, right? This is an important milestone in any relationship. How long did you wait after we broke up before you ran to him? A week? Month? He paused, and she didn't bother to fill the silence because they both knew she was going to see him the very next evening. She dropped Jesse off at his place because she wanted him to spend time with his daughter. She even gave some long, sanctimonious speech, congratulating herself for not being one of those heartless bitches who keeps a child away from his father. Continuing, he said, I don't understand you. I can't understand how, after everything we've been through, you could think so little about us, so little about me. We were married for 12 years. We both have a 9-year-old daughter. You were by my side at my brother's funeral when he was shot and killed in the line of duty. You hugged me and cried with me. And I was at your mother's funeral when she finally passed away from cancer. After all this, you not only cheat on me, but you run to him as soon as the ink is dry on our separation agreement. And now you're calling me and talking about some kind of marriage counseling? Fuck you, Kendra! Kendra screamed again. This time affected Patrick differently than the previous one. Yes, Kendra was selfish. She's always been like this. The fact that Patrick loved her more than she loved him was not much hidden. This does not mean that she did not love him. No, she did. But the driving force behind their marriage has always been a happy wife equals a happy life. The two of them didn't even realize it, that is, until it was too late. Patrick was raised to care about his wife more than anyone else. He prided himself on being good. He didn't cheat on his wife. He never laid a hand on her. If they argued, he quickly apologized, even if he was not in the wrong. After all, if he hurt her feelings, that was enough. Was this the wrong thing for a man to do in a marriage? No. Every man should treat his wife as if she were the only woman in the world. But what Patrick failed to do was create balance. He failed to prioritize his desires and feelings. If she wanted something and it was within reason and within budget, then she got it. Whatever he wanted, he always gave in. Seeing that smile was enough payment for what he was giving up. But when one person's desires are always put on the back burner, something happens. It's becoming normal. It becomes as if this is how it should be. If something different happens, it is considered abnormal and therefore wrong. When his brother died, Kendra was by his side. She was at the funeral, cried with him, and sincerely sympathized with her husband. After all, that's what a good wife does. But he had reached a level of depression that she couldn't understand, especially when her own mother died of cancer. It sucked. She was grieving. She misses her mother every day. But she put one foot in front of the other and kept moving. But there is a difference between someone who dies slowly and someone who is torn away suddenly, and die for doing a little more than just your job. His brother was a policeman. He pulled a woman out of a burning car and did not leave her side until he was sure that she was okay. He saved his mother, who was beaten half to death by her husband. And on top of that, he drove Sally, his neighbor, to work every day in his patrol car because she was constantly being stalked by some young thug who had a thing for a MILF. And he was killed because he stopped a guy because his taillight wasn't on. If his brother could die after doing so much good in this world, what chance did he have? He was a nobody, the one who runs the office. The greatest good he did for the world was recycling. This shook Patrick's world to its core. His brother's death was more than just the death of a brother. When he looked into this coffin, he saw himself. If any of them should be dead, it would be him, not a hero to so many people. If anyone needed time on the therapist's couch, it was Patrick. But he refused therapy. He simply wallowed in his depression, silently crying the tears of his soul. Kendra didn't understand. I could not. He didn't want to talk to her. What he needed from her was something he didn't even realize he needed. He didn't need her to snap him out of this state. He didn't need her to make him feel better or offer him a magical solution to overcome his guilt for being alive. He just needed her to be there. He needed her to stay with him, even when that was impossible. But the relationships he built early on made his feelings less important. He took his place on the seat behind her. He was sad, grieving, depressed, and contemplating his own mortality. But did it for too long. He needed to come to his senses. He had a family here who loved him, and that alone should be enough to bring him out of this state. But it wasn't like that. He needed something more. It was necessary to put him in first place. This time, he needed it to be all about him. The more upset she became, the more he pulled away. The more he pulled away, you get the picture. And then Sean showed up. She met him in a chat room. No, this wasn't some innocent chat where people exchanged recipes and tips for DIY projects. She went looking for confirmation that she was still attractive, that she was worth looking at. And she got it. Of course, she had no intention of cheating. Just a few flirty personal text messages, maybe a couple of photos. Wow, you are beautiful. He wrote her a message. The photo she sent wasn't even that flattering, but he praised her like she was strutting down the runway in the latest Victoria's Secret issue. From that moment on, everything went as usual. Minor exacerbations, more photos, more confirmation, then a bikini photo. Holy crap, I just finished in my pants. Giggle, more photos, this time a little more explicit. But this was just the beginning. Honestly, if that was all it was, she could have pulled the plug at any time. But these phone calls got her hooked. Those intimate moments that she stole from her day to hear his voice, his laughter, his breathing. He was no longer a soulless, online flirt. He was a real person, a funny, sensitive man who liked to listen to her. He always made her laugh. And when she complained about her husband, he was always there to listen and help her feel better. He put her first, just like Patrick used to do. This last 3-day weekend, a lie to end all lies, was the last gasp of her marriage. He knew her mother had cancer. When Kendra suddenly had to visit her, he assumed the worst. Feeling his wife's pain, or at least the pain she was supposed to be in, brought him out of his funk, even if only temporarily. He felt that she needed him, so he tried to buy 2 plane tickets at the last minute to meet her there. She and Jesse were going to be there for her in her time of need, but she told him not to do it. She was adamant about this. In fact, she said the strangest thing, namely, "This is something I need to do alone." Who wants to go through this alone? Who wouldn't want their spouse to be there with them, even if just for moral support? But later, when her mom died, did she need him for this? This was the beginning of his suspicions. He began to pay more attention to her phone activity, the way this happened to her everywhere, including the bathroom, the way she put the phone face down, the way she turned him away from him slightly when she texted, or how she sometimes left the room when the phone rang. And then, one day, she left him at home by mistake. Curious, he tried to open it, only to find that she had changed the password since their anniversary. Previously, this was her 4-digit code for most PINs. Her debit and credit cards, her banking information, her voicemail, but not anymore. And then, as she rushed back in a panic to pick him up, alarm bells rang loudly. The look in her eyes, the fear, was almost a confession in itself, but he needed proof, so he watched her closely, pretending not to notice anything. He watched until one day he saw her unlock it. The new code consisted of 4 numbers that didn't match anything he knew, so he had to repeat it to himself over and over again to remember it. He later finds out that it was Sean's birthday. Patrick looked at the clock on the wall. It was 12:15. It was officially Christmas. "Well, it's already Christmas, Kendra," he said, feeling incredibly empty after such a short conversation. She sniffled. "Yes, I think yes." Both seemed reluctant to end the conversation. It was actually a metaphor for everything else. That's why they were still separated, but neither of them had filed for divorce yet. Even though she was going to meet Sean's parents today, she couldn't bring herself to apply. Part of her, even if it was far-fetched, hoped for a Christmas miracle. She hoped that he would tell her that he couldn't live without her and that he was coming home to her. If Patrick did this, she would gladly cut Sean out of her life. Unfortunately, she did not understand that it was precisely this train of thought that prevented her from achieving the Christmas miracle. What she failed to understand was that the more she refused to put him first, the more he pulled away from her. They found themselves at a dead end. Patrick still loved his wife, no matter how much he struggled with that love. Her betrayal still hurt, but she no longer incapacitated him as she once did. Once upon a time, every waking moment was consumed by her and those text messages. But lately, he found himself passing days without thinking about it. The weeks will soon pass, and then she would just be the mother of his child, someone he once knew. This purgatory won't last forever. "Merry Christmas, Kendra," Patrick said. And you know, he really thought so. "I hope you find what you are looking for." She sighed sadly. She won't get her Christmas miracle. Not this year. Maybe in the next one. "Merry Christmas, Patrick." She swallowed the words, "I love you," She knew that he would not answer her in kind, even if he felt it. She missed those words falling from his lips. No matter how many times Sean repeated them, it couldn't compare. Patrick was her first love, her best friend, her soulmate. It was truly her loss. The click of the call ending made Kendra break down again. What she wouldn't give to go back 5 Christmases to the time she gave him that chair.